Well, Mr. President, with the current value of the dollar, do you think it's declined too much?
No, I think it's great. I mean, the value of the dollar, look at the business we're doing. No, dollar's doing great.
Well, Mr. President.
I mean, everything changed last night when Trump said that, because he basically said the quiet part out loud here. There he was admitting that even though the dollar has been breaking down, and I want to show you this chart right here. So there he was admitting that even though the dollar is breaking down, the value of a dollar is great. He said the quiet part out loud. He's basically saying that it's kind of intentional that they're weakening the dollar, and that's basically fuel for the markets. Absolute fuel for the market. So I want to talk about what it actually means, and I want to talk about why it's such fuel to the markets, and I want to talk about who the beneficiaries of this fuel are going to be. And I know Bitcoin's not moving, but what you are seeing is you're seeing a lot of the other tokens actually moving. So just look at the bubbles for today. Look at how the tokens are moving today. And if you look at the commodities, if you look at the gold price, if you look at the silver price, gold's up at $5,300. Silver continues its parabola. It is now trading at, I mean, let's quickly just look at where silver is. But it's trading, I mean, it's flying. It's absolutely parabolic. 112. I know it was as high as 117 or 120. So, and I think also the S&P 500 also flying today. Let's quickly just look at the S&P 500 up 0.26%. So let's talk about Trump's market fuel, and let's talk about how Trump's market fuel filters into Bitcoin. Does it filter into Bitcoin? When does it filter into Bitcoin? If it doesn't filter into Bitcoin, what's going to happen next? Big show today. Market fuel. That's what this show is called. Let's get going, guys. All right, happy Market Fuel Day to those who celebrate, because there's nothing else that I can say about it except market fuel. I mean, just look at what 𝗙𝗘𝗔𝗧𝗪 says here. He says, you know, asset holders just carry on, the asset owner party just carries on winning. Just look at this, all these green numbers, and all because of everything that Trump said yesterday. It's also FOMC Day for those people who celebrate. I'm not expecting too much at the FOMC. I think specifically after this thing that's going on between Trump and between Powell, and Powell being subpoenaed, I think Powell's going to keep it very reserved. And I think I'm sticking to I think the predictions out there is going to be no rate cut at all. And in fact, if you look at the probabilities, they're looking at 1, maybe 2 rate cuts this year. That's pretty much what everybody's looking at for tonight. So I'm not expecting big fireworks for tonight, but it doesn't matter. They wouldn't get big fireworks tonight. We got big fireworks last night. Probably the biggest fireworks that we've ever seen. I really want to spend some time talking about it. So listen, if you're new to the channel, my name's 𝗙𝗘𝗦, and I've been here for 12 years. I've been making content every single day on Banter since the beginning of Banter. I am the founder of Banter. And I bring you crypto love, and I bring you crypto wisdom here. Now, I do notice that some of you aren't subscribed to the channel. I really think that if you're not already subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel. And I think today I'm going to bring you lots of crypto knowledge. So if you like the knowledge, please just smash the like button. It really does help us with a lot of distribution. Anyway, let's get the show on the road. And it's a big show because, as I said before, yesterday, Trump changed everything. I mean, it was 11 seconds. But rest assured that everything he said in those 11 seconds was absolutely calculated. These guys are playing 4D chess. And I'll show you exactly how the pieces on the 4D chessboard all come together. This is what Trump said yesterday when he was asked about the dollar.
Well, Mr. President, with the current value of the dollar, do you think it's declined too much?
No, I think it's great. I mean, the value of the dollar, look at the business we're doing. No, dollar's doing great.
So he was asked whether he thinks that the value of the dollar has declined too much. And he said, no. He thinks it's great. And that happened. This has happened after, if we look at when Trump came into power, and let's say that Trump was inaugurated somewhere over here, right? The dollar is down since Trump was inaugurated. Now, let's just say he was inaugurated there. Yeah, there we go. So, hold on, is that 25 or 26? Yeah, that's right, 2025, that's right. The dollar is down 15% since Trump basically came into power. Now, that effectively means that any risk asset, if it just wants to hold its value, should have gone up 15%, which is one of the points that I want to talk about around Bitcoin, right? Because if you look at Bitcoin, since Trump came into power, and here we'll say that Trump came into power in somewhere, let's just quickly go to November, so it's around there. And you say, look, let's take this level over here where it was, and let's just go up 15%. This is where Bitcoin should be excluding the Trump factor, which is 76,000 or 75,000. That's where that's just the depreciation of the dollar. But we'll get back to that in a second. What's going on here is Trump basically admitted that he's okay with the dollar devaluing. Now, the reason why that's so big is because up until now, people have thought that they are weakening the dollar and that it is intentional. But kind of what he said yesterday is, I'm okay with it. The dollar is exactly where it needs to be. And as Lynn Alden says, the breakdown in the dollar seems pretty intentional. Most people will sensationalize it, but it looks like it's going to go down. And if it gets to sub 90, it really becomes interesting. I think it's also important to note that this happens at the same week when we heard on Monday that the Fed was potentially intending to sell yen to support the Japanese, to sell dollar and to buy yen to support the Japanese yen. Now that move has a double impact on the 𝗙𝗘𝗔𝗧. Why? Because on the one hand, selling dollars weakens the dollar. On the other hand, it strengthens the yen, which is a component of the 𝗙𝗘𝗔𝗧, and that would make the dollar drop even more. So it's evident at this point that Trump is doing everything to tank the dollar on purpose, and we'll talk about what a weak dollar actually means for the markets. We'll talk about that in a second and why Trump's actually doing it. I think important to note the following, right? This move in the dollar is a massive move, and this is why I think it's going to bring so much market fuel to the fire here, right? So if you look at the dollar's been in a channel since 2007. This is a breakdown of a channel that has been going through since 2007. That's how long this channel's been going up for. At the same time, here, I'll show you another one here, 2007, 2008. At the same time, this happens at a time when the S&P is also at the top of a channel that's been going since 2018. Now, if the dollar breaks down below this channel over here and goes towards 90, then what could happen is that the S&P 500 could also break, because it's a risk asset. It's a gauge for risk assets. And this could mean that the S&P 500 breaks out of this channel. Now, if we break out of this channel, then instead of the correction that everyone's been expecting, what we can expect is we can expect absolute price discovery. Now, look, we haven't broken through the channel yet. In fact, we touched it and we got rejected yesterday. And obviously, we're still at a point where the channel can actually be rejected, because remember, as a market technician, you play what you are given, not what you expect, right? And what you are given right now is a rejection. But if the dollar breaks down here, then there's a good chance here that we break above this channel over here. And that basically creates a brand new paradigm for risk assets. That basically takes us out of this paradigm for risk assets and puts us into a completely new paradigm. And in the new paradigm for risk assets, the S&P trades outside or above this channel, and we basically reprice all assets to the US dollar. It's probably the ultimate expression of this debasement trade, because it doesn't mean that the assets are becoming more valuable. It just means that the dollar is becoming cheaper, and all the assets that are denominated in the dollars basically need to be repriced. And that's exactly what's happening. So if you look at the gold, which is priced in dollars, when gold got this move, gold rocketed to $5,300. When silver got this move, well, then you got silver going to $120 or $117, because it doesn't mean that silver got more expensive. It just means that the dollar is collapsing, and as the dollar is collapsing, everyone is moving into these hard assets. So let's talk about the implications or the effects of a weak dollar and why Trump may actually want a weak dollar. So let's look at what Trump's playbook actually is. Trump's playbook is to make the US more competitive, right? And to make the US more competitive, you need to make it cheaper for other countries to buy from the US. And at the same time, you need to make it more expensive for Americans to buy from other manufacturers. Step one of the Trump playbook was to bring in tariffs. Tariffs were supposed to bring a lot of the manufacturing onshore. So instead of paying the tariffs for the goods that are coming from offshore, rather just make them in America and build the factories in America, stimulate the US economy. At the same time as you're stimulating the US economy, you're making American goods cheaper, right? And you're making the Americans less reliant on imports. At the same time, you're making America more competitive, because as the dollar weakens, it makes dollar-denominated goods, which are bought in the United States, much, much, much cheaper, right? And that's basically the Trump playbook, right? So if you look at what the Trump playbook actually is, and who may actually benefit from this. So let's just look at it. Let's just look at it over here. Let me just have a look here. So number one, if you look at it, a weaker dollar actually lines up with everything you push for. Makes US exports cheaper, narrows the trade gap, and supports domestic jobs because US exports are actually cheaper. On top of that, it does a whole lot of other things, right? The first thing is it makes a higher nominal GDP. So GDP looks higher. It's not really higher. It's just that the dollar is lower, and so it makes it look higher. It makes higher asset prices. Now, remember that Trump measures himself on how many people he can get rich and how high the markets move. It feels like the markets are going higher, but they're not. It just feels like it, and people will feel richer, but actually they're devaluing the dollar. Higher US exports and lower trade deficit, easier debt servicing for US government. That's why Trump said this is going great. And for them, it is going great, right? This is all part of the strategy that Bessent and Trump had. First part, implement tariffs. Second part, bring manufacturing onshore. Now manufacturing is onshore. Get Americans to use their dollars to buy dollar-denominated goods. Get other countries to start buying from the US and therefore reduce the trade deficit, therefore increase the GDP. It's the exact Trump playbook. So what it should also do is it should also change the business cycle, because now with the dollar going down, people feel richer. People feel richer, GDP is higher. The ISM, which remember is basically just a survey across manufacturers, the ISM basically starts spiking, right? What does it mean if the ISM starts spiking? It means a change in the business cycle. Now, for us, the reason why for us that's such a big thing is because what we know is that Bitcoin starts to move when the ISM actually flips above 50. The ISM has been below 50 for a couple of years now. I think it's been below 50 for about 4 years now. And we're trying to get the ISM basically going above 50. When the ISM gets above 50, that's when copper runs, and that's when Bitcoin usually run. And so as Bitcoin holders, that's actually quite big. There is a negative side of this trade. And I want to say a negative side of this trade. There is a side of this trade which says that the less people want to hold dollars, the less people are going to want US treasuries, the higher the rates on US treasuries are going to have to become. And then, to that end, there's a thing called Sell America. It's a financial market term used to describe broad investment trend from April 2005 in which investors reduce exposure to United States dollar and United States assets. Now, we've seen that. The tariffs, the invasion of Venezuela, Greenland, and the EU tariffs. All those things have been seen as Sell America events. And so there's an interesting paradigm that's actually happening. The dollar is devaluing, and people are moving away from the dollar, and they're moving into gold as the reserve asset of the world. So believe it or not, we've come full circle. We started off with gold as the reserve asset of the world, and now we're getting back to gold being the reserve asset of the world, because what people are doing is they are dumping their dollars and they're buying gold. So this is a tweet that said, the dollar is no longer the reserve currency. Gold is literally, by technical definition, now the primary reserve asset. The world as you've known it is dead, and the new dawn rises. And ironically, the new dawn is actually the old dawn. And that's because gold has overtaken the US dollar, statistically, as the global reserve currency, believe it or not. So that's gold, and that's the dollar actually crashing. And you can kind of see that they're moving out of dollars, and they're moving into gold, and that's why the commodity prices start spiking. So this is where it gets interesting, right? Bitcoin was developed. Bitcoin was created as the scarce digital asset to exactly weather exactly what's going on here. And that is what they call dollar devaluation or dollar debasement. When you think about why was Bitcoin created? Bitcoin was created as an inflation hedge. It was created in 2008, just after the 2008 housing crisis. Satoshi published the white paper, and it was all about the fact that they used stimulus, or that they devalued the dollar. Trump literally did the same thing last night. He devalued the dollar by saying, we want a weaker dollar, and he's taking actions to devalue the dollar. And so now it becomes really interesting. because this is what Bitcoin was made for. And if Bitcoin doesn't run when events happen that are what it was made for, then for every day that that doesn't happen, we have to question that, or people will start questioning what the thesis is as to why Bitcoin actually exists, right? People will start saying, look, we got into this asset because it was around dollar devaluation. It was around that trade. That trade has happened, but Bitcoin didn't respond. Maybe Bitcoin's broken. Maybe Bitcoin doesn't actually work, right? So I asked yesterday, I said, look, what is Bitcoin? Is it a store of value? Is it a peer-to-peer cash? I know it's not a peer-to-peer cash. I think we all know that. Is it a technology? It's not really a technology, because technology makes money out of license fees or SaaS fees, and Bitcoin doesn't charge SaaS fees. Or is it a meme coin that just represents meme extra liquidity in the market? But then I also tweeted something else, and I said, Bitcoin's narrative is solely dependent on its price. And what I know from being in Bitcoin for a long time is that when the price goes down, the FUD and the negative narratives start to hit the market. When the price goes up, the opposite happens. And so I think what could happen now is at some point we get one green candle. When we get that one green candle, the narrative changes completely into, Bitcoin's dead, Bitcoin's store of value, Bitcoin's not a store of value, to Bitcoin's quantum computing. The narrative completely changes, and people say Bitcoin's coming back. Bitcoin is the store of value, digital store of value. It's gold 2.0. Bitcoin's narrative and Bitcoin's narrative is solely dependent on its price, because it doesn't have earnings underlying it, underpinning it, because it doesn't have cash flows underpinning it. The only narrative that Bitcoin has is its price. And so what I think happens is the following. I think we get a green candle. And if we don't, then I think it does a lot of damage to Bitcoin long term. When we get that green candle, then I think people start talking about this trade over here. And this trade over here is like, listen, wow, the gold market is 35 trillion. Bitcoin was bigger than silver just a couple of months ago. And then we go back on track with this narrative. In the meantime, though, Bitcoin isn't really moving. I don't know why. I mean, there's a million and one theories as to why Bitcoin isn't moving. It could be the 4-year cycle. It could be this whole quantum threat. Regardless of what it is, I know from being here for many, many, many years that this changes when we get one green candle. We literally have to have one green candle. The shorts get liquidated. Everybody runs back into Bitcoin and says, this is the biggest catch-up trade of all time. And I think that is a scenario that we should be looking out for, right? We should keep our minds open to that. At the same time, just look at what happened to Bitcoin every other time that the dollar actually breaks down. So as the dollar breaks down below 96, look at what happened to Bitcoin. Bitcoin literally goes parabolic, right? And I mean, we're pretty much there. The dollar is now at 96.188. So if we break down below here, that's more fuel onto Bitcoin's fire. And if Bitcoin is going to do anything, then it needs to do it at that point over there where I think the ISM will change. In the meantime, one thing which is amazing is that generally the market is very reliant on Bitcoin to be moving, for the altcoins to be moving. But today the market isn't like that. So it almost feels like there's a lot of pent up fundamentals and a lot of pent up energy in the altcoins. And what Trump said yesterday, he said basically he gave the license for a risk asset market Meltup. That's what he said. Risk asset market Meltup. Remember, if the S&P breaks above this channel, then this channel over here, then valuations as we know them since 2017, everything basically goes out the window, because those valuations were in that channel. Once you break out of that channel and you break into dollar devaluation, I see while we're doing the stream, Bitcoin's just broken 90,000, which is great. ETH is broken 3,200. We are repricing every single risk asset. And I mean, I don't know, I don't think you guys know what a repricing is. I know it because I live in Africa, and I've seen what happens in Zimbabwe, where all of a sudden a loaf of bread gets repriced from 10 Zimbabwe dollars to $1 trillion Zimbabwe dollars. That's a revaluation. People that live in emerging markets know what happens when currencies devalue. Devaluation means a repricing of all assets, and an aggressive repricing of all assets. Now, I don't think that's going to happen to 𝗙𝗘𝗔𝗃, but I'm just trying to show you that all your frames of reference change when we break above this channel and below that channel. Now, again, we haven't broken above the channel. Yes, we tested it yesterday. By the way, that channel on my charts is about 7,020 or something like that. I suppose I could be a little bit more accurate on the charts, but it just shows you where we currently are. And of course, that can reject. The good news is that look at the altcoins. The altcoins are saying, look, you know what, Bitcoin, you don't need to move. There's a lot of pent up demand. We've been hit very, very, very hard. Look at Hyperliquid. I think this is something that I really want to spend some time talking about today, because I think what's going to happen now in crypto is the following. I think 2026 is going to be the year where the Mag 7 of crypto are created. So, you know, like in the stocks, you have the Mag 7. The Mag 7 are the 7 most important stocks in crypto. Now, the reason why they're the 7 most important stocks in crypto in the world is not because, well, for one, they are titans of their industry, AI companies, etc., but also because all the liquidity, all the velocity, all the options trading, all find their way into the Mag 7. And so when investors want to allocate cash, when they want to take options positions, where do they go? They go where there's liquidity. And they create a network effect. They create a network effect around price and liquidity. And that's very, very, very important, because that means that the more important assets keep becoming more and more important. The more liquidity they have, the more people trade them. The more people trade them, the more liquidity they have. Therefore, the more people deploy money into them. And so I think we're about to get the Mag 7 of crypto. And I think in the Mag 7 of crypto, I'll make a video about this, and I'll drop it tomorrow or the next day on the other channel, on Crypto Insider. But I think that Hyperliquid is one of the most important tokens in crypto. Why? Because number one, it is the only decentralized perpetuals exchange that has managed to give the big boys a run for their money. If you look at like the average open interest on Hyperliquid versus the average open interest on Binance and whatever else, this is the only one that's actually making headway. Yes, there are rats and mice that we've been trading and that they've been coming, but none of them have done what Hyperliquid have done. Hyperliquid has also now allowed people to trade perps on stocks in a decentralized way. Now, just what does that mean? It means that you can take pair trades. You can go long gold, short crypto on a decentralized exchange. You can go long Nvidia, short Bitcoin, or long Bitcoin, short Nvidia on a decentralized perpetuals exchange. And that's why Hyperliquid's basically running. Now, we're very much in Hyperliquid. In Frontrunners, that's one of the biggest trades that we've actually taken. Another trade that we've actually taken big time in Frontrunners is Canton. Like I've been talking about Canton for a long time. In fact, here's the time where I told the Frontrunners to actually buy it. It was 18th of December, and I said it's at 0.7, or I meant 0.07. We'd actually just bought a little bit earlier. And so this, I mean, here's a token that's done basically a 3x in this market. Like, can you imagine a 3x in this market? Well, that is one of the calls that we actually ended up making here in Frontrunners. The other one that I think is going to start running now, also part of the Mag 7 in crypto, is Zcash. I think that one's going to start running now. What you're starting to see is that, yes, the market is tough, but if you're holding the right tokens and if you're with the right community, there is actually a lot of money to be made even in this bad market. So, I mean, my calls are much more fundamental in nature. I mean, just here they are, like Canton, Solana, obviously always, Hype, Zcash, Pump's another one that's actually running. By the way, Pump's also made my Mag 7 of crypto. Why? Because I know you can't say it's part of the crypto infrastructure tokens, but it is, because it's the attention infrastructure in crypto. I think the big narratives, privacy, you'll see. I think if we look at things like ZK, Canton, ZK Sync, etc., those will all land up moving. At the same time, I mean, just look at all. I mean, my stuff in Frontrunners is very much long-term stuff, right? Look at these guys. So this is Lucky. He's trading. I mean, just look at his time frames. Very different from my time frames. His trades are 19 hours, 4 minutes, 11 hours. So if you want to be a short-term trader, that's also available to you in Frontrunners. Here's some results. 165% on Axie Infinity short the other day. Very, who runs our on-chain or meme coin section. Look, the trenches are on fire. Like, these guys are making 2x in 35 minutes. The trenches are on fire. They made 100x the other day on the Penguin coin. Kapoor also taking a lot of trades. There is a lot of money to be made in altcoins. Yes, the market's boring, but if you're in the right places, there is a good place to be. If you're not trading, then I suggest you just put your money and land up in the Mag 7 of crypto. If you are trading, let us hold your hand, guys. Let us hold your hand. There's a link below. Like, join Frontrunners. If you don't like it in a month, just leave and you'll get your money back for the month. You lose nothing. But I cannot stress to you how important it is to be part of a community in a time like this where the market's not moving. Anyway, enough about front runners. But I really think that if you're going to do it because I think it is really, really, really a solid place to be. So as I said, going back to it, I think the worst case scenario is that Bitcoin breaks down in this environment and the 4-year cycle is to right and we go back below $80,000. The best case is that we get one green candle and we go above this 98,000 and we go back into the chart structure over here. If we get to that level in the chart structure, and it's if the S&P breaks out and Bitcoin doesn't break out, I mean, if we break back into this chart structure over here, then everything is forgiven and then a big catch-up trade actually lands up happening. Now, again, I'm not a fortune teller. I can't tell you which way this is going to go. I can tell you, though, that what Trump did last night unleashed a market melt-up scenario for risk assets. Literally, with those 11 seconds, he unleashed a market melt-up scenario. Asset holders, I mean, even oil went up. Even oil now is back at $62 a barrel. That just shows that the market is expecting an absolute melt-up. All right, so listen, speaking of melt-ups, tomorrow I'm going to drop a video to show you which tokens I think you should be buying in this melt-up. And I've got another big video for you guys on Friday. I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Until then, trade well, my friends.